Hello, welcome to the first official episode of the podcast, Everything's Relative. My name is Eve Sturgis, and I'm your host, trying to start a conversation with people about the way that DNA testing has rocked their world. It seems fair to start with my own story, and I should say that I actually didn't do a DNA test until I got the weirdest phone call of my life about a year ago. A man I'd never heard of seemed to know an awful lot about my parents and a lot about my life, and he said that he thought he was my actual dad. And so we did a DNA test, and he was correct. And in a lot of ways, it turned my whole world upside down, as you can probably imagine. But one of the great things that I've discovered in the past year is how many people are also going through this with their own families. And it's so much because of mail-order DNA tests and how popular they've become. So that's what this podcast is. I'm just trying to talk to people and find out what it's like for them, what they want to say about it. And we're finding ways to relate and also finding ways that our stories are all very, very different. So it's been really fun. And I think that it's not only enjoyable, but it's also really good information for people to have. And I think that probably by now it's obvious that this is my first podcast. It feels like podcasts are always a really great idea until you're all alone in a room trying to talk. And so please bear with me as I figure this out, figure out what I'm doing, and iron out the kinks and get more and more comfortable with the microphone. Thanks so much. We're going to get started. I'm going to play this interview that I had with a man a couple weeks ago. Really great. And what I want to say is something that's going to come up again and again is that this man wanted to stay anonymous. He really felt like it was important to tell his story for himself, but he wants to keep it anonymous for some other people. And that is one of the reasons that this situation is so difficult for people, is there's so much expectation around secrecy. And to be honest, there are people in my life that don't want me to tell this story or are really uncomfortable with this podcast. And I totally understand. I totally understand all points of view. But here I am. This feels important. So here I am doing it. And I'm going to go ahead and get the tape rolling. This is Everything's Relative. This is episode 1, and I am Eve Sturgis. Okay, so let's go back, because you're starting to tell me everything. Let's start with 2013 when you said, hey, let's do this Ancestry.com thing, or whatever.
So, right, I ordered the kit online, and it was mailed to me, and nothing in particular struck me as being odd. Mm-hmm. In fact, it connected me to cousins that I knew already.
Oh, great.
And family that had already done it. So
Which is how it's supposed to work.
Right. And I think for the most part, I was only expecting to get new information where my genetics were concerned, as far as what, ethnic backgrounds and stuff like that. And so I was a little surprised with one of the ethnicities that came back, being that I've always been raised thinking that I was totally Mexican-American, and there was no other real curiosity, maybe just a little bit of Asian, because it was rumored that there was Asian in my background.
That was before. You already knew there may be a little bit of Asian.
Right.
But mostly
I was expecting
it was like
that to come up.
Mexican-American pride.
But yeah, definitely. Okay. And then when I saw like 20-something% of Middle Eastern, that kind of, took me aback. And then when I told my mom, she was like, no way. Nope. We're not Middle Eastern. Like, she totally did not. Yeah.
There's no space for Middle Eastern in a Mexican American family.
Right. She didn't see it at all. So
that's so interesting. And at this point, what was your relationship like with your mom?
Well, my mom and I had an interesting relationship because she didn't raise me my whole life. So right now, I would say at that time, we were in a great place, I thought. Okay. Because I had moved back home. Mm-hmm. And because she had, I had only lived with her maybe 3 years that I remember, like during, my seventh childhood, childhood, that I felt like it was kind of rebalancing the scale between us, and we were creating. It was kind of like mending those wounds for me. I felt from childhood that, she had raised me or she hadn't raised me for part of the time. And now it was like we were back in this, environment together and working things out.
Totally. Well, I can imagine how, especially like as an adult, going back to live with your mom as an adult would be an opportunity. You would imagine would be an opportunity to maybe mend some things or get to know each other in a different way.
Yes.
So you were feeling hopeful.
Yes, I was. And it was going well. Mm-hmm. It was going really well. And then I want to say maybe December of 2016, I received a notice from my Ancestry.com account. And they told me that there was a new person. And when I looked up at the list, she rose above like so many of my cousins, and she was right under my uncle that raised me. And it just was like really striking because the name didn't ring any bells with me.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. So the aunt and uncle that raised you were from your mom's side of the family?
The uncle is my mom's brother.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
Continue.
Right.
Sorry. There's always like all these little complicated details we have to clarify. Okay.
So my first instinct was looking, at the last name, which I have an uncle. I don't even consider him a step uncle. He is my mom's brother, but he technically would be a half.
Okay.
So it was the same last name, but in asking around the family, there was no person by this name. I don't even know if I should say her name, but okay.
You can make up a name.
Okay, so
Katie, Esmeralda.
Okay. Finkenstein.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was no name, and I ran it by. We have a couple of subgroups, I guess, in Facebook, cousins and whatnot. And nobody claimed her.
Everyone was like, we don't know an
We don't know her.
Finkelstein.
And it just seemed like nobody was answering. And I thought, okay, maybe this girl doesn't know who she is. And I felt so sorry for her.
Oh, no. She's like this orphan.
She's this orphan. Or maybe she was all these different ideas and fantasies were running through my head. And then I thought, well, because my birth certificate dad came from a really big family. He was one of 17.
Oh my gosh.
So I just thought, okay, I know I have 9 aunts and, I guess 6 uncles, and maybe one of my uncles had a one-night stand, or who knows?
Right.
Anything's possible in that family.
Right. Well, yeah.
So I kind of left it alone for a while, but it kept bothering me, and I emailed her a few times, maybe like 5 or 6. Over the course of a year.
You were emailing Esmeralda?
Esmeralda.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll say Esmeralda. And she wouldn't reply. And I thought, why would you even sign up for a system that's going to connect you with people that are your relatives? And we're very closely related.
Yeah.
It's saying maybe first cousins, maybe, it just didn't make sense to me. So I took some time off. I did mention it to my mom, and this was something that had been brought up in conversation throughout my life, where I had asked, having an uncle who said that I might not be the same.
Right. So you had an uncle. So what you and I talked about before we started recording was that you had an uncle that would occasionally drop sort of passive aggressive comments about how maybe you and your brother didn't have the same dad.
Yes.
And
I was the milkman's son.
Yeah, he would make little
the milkman's son.
Little jokes.
I was this guy could have been my father down the street. That was the joke.
Right. So you already had that idea in your mind.
Right.
So now you've got a strange Ancestry.com results, and now the second level is that this Esmeralda has shown up.
Yes.
So when you talked to your mom, you had all these ideas. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I asked my mom about it, she said, "Well, what would you tell the Esmeralda's or not Esmeralda's family, but the family that I grew up with as thinking that they were my biological father?" And I said, well, I just kind of reacted slowly, and I said, I wouldn't tell them anything because I don't want to hurt them. And they've grown up with me most of, my whole life thinking I'm their nephew and their cousins and I just don't want to hurt anybody, but I do want to know the truth for myself.
So I'm sorry. This is because I'm just trying to catch everybody up. So no, it's not confusing. It's just these things are so layered. And so your birth certificate father, he died when you were
when I was
young.
8.
You were 8 years
I was
old.
8 years old.
But his family stayed a big part of your life.
Not so much a big part, but
Okay.
they were there.
They were there, and you were their nephew.
And I was their nephew.
So you
and
have a relationship with them.
I do have a relationship with them. I
Right,
would only
so-
see them maybe once or twice a year because, like I said, my uncle had taken legal custody of me.
Right, and
from
then
a younger age.
You had moved to other states,
and I
with
had
them
moved around, out of state.
Okay, sorry, continue.
So, but the biggest thing was that the first time in my life that my mother actually sounded like there could be a possibility that my brother and I could have different fathers. And that's what really blew my mind, because I had asked her many times before in the past, and she always contended with the same thing, that she knew when I was conceived, she knew where, that she was married, the whole thing.
And how many years apart are you and your brother?
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did he go live with your aunt and uncle when you were little?
No.
Just you. Okay.
Yeah, just me.
All right.
Right, and that was always a question in my mind too. Why didn't they take him? He was a little bit older. Probably would have had a harder time with accepting them as parental
Adjusting.
figures.
It would be a much more memorable transition for him.
Because
sure.
he was already too attached to my mom, I think. And they said I would go with anybody. Like everybody watched me. No, I didn't give anybody any problems. So, yeah. So then I waited.
So now you're asking your mom again, and she's saying
she's acting like
saying
there could be a possibility. Yeah, she waffled a little. And so I think I wrote Esmeralda again and asked her, about our situation, and she never replied to me via Ancestry.com. So I thought, it's been a while. I think I need to step up the process here and find out what's going on, because it just felt urgent to me. It was bothering me. It was sitting on my chest, my shoulder, and I just wouldn't go away. And so I thought about it, and I asked my brother if he would do the test, because I thought this is the one person that I could ask, and if it doesn't match, then it should make sense.
Right, that answers that.
Right. So I bought it for him. They mailed it to him. He did it, even though he thinks the whole thing is BS, according to him.
Okay.
He didn't feel like it was even worth doing.
Okay.
But he, he went ahead and did it, and the results came back, and I remember it so clearly because I was at work when I got the email that his results were in. And I went into the account and I was able to view our relationship and all of our matches. And we had cousins, like I said, that were already on there who, of course, we matched with. And then here's Esmeralda. She doesn't match with him, but she's matching with me.
With you.
So I thought, okay, how is that even possible? If she doesn't match with him, then something is up here. It just doesn't seem possible. Then we have to have different sibling or different fathers. It just, know.
And it didn't say within the Ancestry.com what the relationship is between you and your brother? Did it say half brothers, or
no?
it just
in fact,
connected
it just
you?
kind of said like close relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, for a few of my family members, it's come up like that. With my uncle that raised me, it says close relationship. So it doesn't say uncle. It doesn't say, like I think with Esmeralda, it said another like close relationship.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it didn't go into
each program, each company seems to have like a little bit of a different system.
Right.
So, and I'm not totally familiar with them by heart yet. So
I feel like I need to look at it to verify,
Sure,
because it's bothering me now to say exactly this was exactly what it said. But so then of course my mom texts me and I said the results are in, and she says, well, is she on your brother's list? And I said no. And I think I said, is there something you want to tell me in text message? This is all kind of easier done in text message. And then she said, hold on a second. And then maybe 10 minutes later, she replied. It was like waiting.
the longest 10 minutes of your
my
life.
life. And she says, there was somebody else. And she said that she had an affair while she was married to who I thought was my dad. And she said that she had never talked about it. And she told me the whole thing, and I I asked her to tell me everything she remembered about him because I wanted to find him, and I needed to find him. I needed to see him. I needed to talk to him. I needed to know. And
So you knew already that you wanted that.
I knew
you knew that. You even sound so sure right now.
I was so sure that I had to meet him because this is my father. Mm-hmm. Unless there was some kind of situation where she said she was raped or it was an unwilling kind of thing. But no, she was willing in this. So I felt like I need to talk to this guy. I need to find out who he is. And so she gave me the information, his name, where he went to high school, and when he graduated, and that he was she gave me some real specifics, like he was other than his name, that he was in the Air Force.
So she knew him.
She knew there was a lot of information there. And so it was bugging me all day at work. When I got home, I immediately went on Facebook and I started looking around, searching, and then I found out that there was an alumni from his high school. Started going through a list of people.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah, looking
like
around.
Nancy Drew.
Right, my own Nancy Drew. So then my next thought was, after looking through the alumni, she had the wrong name, first of all. She had this last name wrong. And I'm thinking, well, it's been 49 years, so I'll give her that. You know, it was close. It started with the right first letter, but it was a little off. And so I found him, and he had a Facebook page. And as I looked at the page, I saw that he died. He was deceased.
Oh.
So I was a little heartbroken at that time to find out that here is my search, and here he is. He's no longer here. And the next thing I thought was, well, you know, the person that I was looking for, this Esmeralda, is she tied to him, or what's the deal? So I went through his friends list and I noticed that I saw that he had a daughter who said something about my father passing away and being really sad. And then I said, okay, so I possibly have a half sister here. And then I went through the friends list, and there's Esmeralda. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just solved the whole mystery like in a half a day.
Right.
And found my family.
World Wide Web.
Right. And then I told my mom, I said, I found him, but he's dead. He's deceased. And she said, no way. He was just here like 2 years ago.
Wait.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm like,
hold up, Mom.
Yeah. What do you mean he was here 2 years ago? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And she said, yeah, he stopped by the house. And she said she didn't recognize him because it had been so long.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And that,
makes sense.
Right. And I remember her saying he had a little girl in the car, which ended up being his granddaughter. And that he was talking to her, and she was just kind of answering his questions, but still racking her brain, trying to remember where she knew him from. She thought he could have been one of her friends from high school, one of my uncle's friends. She didn't know. And then,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So then they had a short, I think, awkward conversation. And then he walked away. He said bye. And as he was walking away, he turned back and he said, by the way, how's...
Whoa.
Yeah. That's when she realized, oh my gosh, this is father.
Oh.
Or who could have been father.
Right.
So then she explained to me she never knew. She wasn't sure. She always thought that, you know...
Almost scary.
Right. So all this information started trickling in. And I remember, you know, asking my mom when I was little, before when I had heard that there was a possibility. And she had told me, you were conceived on Valentine's Day. And so I'm counting the months. I'm like, okay, yeah, my birthday is 9 months after Valentine's Day. That makes sense. Okay. But she didn't tell me with who. And but maybe she just, like she says, she wasn't sure. And she just accepted that rather than rock her world, I guess, she just stuck with the husband she was with. But she says that
there's certainly a path of less resistance in that circumstance.
And he never questioned. And she said that my bio dad, this new guy, always contended that he was my father. He always felt like he was my dad.
So he knew about you.
He knew about me.
Knew she was still in communication with him after your birth.
Yes. But I didn't know all this yet. It wasn't until the next day. So I said, I want to go visit this sister. I want to go talk to her. I want to know what she knows. And so my mom was like, okay, well, I'm coming with you. So it turns out he only lived about 2 miles from me.
Oh my God.
Heartbreaking.
This gets.
And to find out that one of the schools that I went to in like my junior high school, it was a private Christian school, was down the street from him.
Oh.
So it really made me feel like he was so close, but yet
So close,
far.
but so far away.
Right. Yeah. So we show up at the house, and it's this whole thing because his house, it's like 2 houses on a lot, but each one of them is facing a different like direction on each different street.
Sure.
So we realized that his house is hard to get to, and yeah. So
Do they know you're coming?
no, why would I tell them I'm coming? I felt my thing is like I want you to tell me because I did email her on Facebook. She didn't reply back, but it only been like 12 hours.
Right.
Since, or about 24 hours. And so I just thought, I'm more of a in-your-face person. Like, I want to know face-to-face. Do you want to have a relationship with me? Do you want to talk honestly with me? Or look what I was dealing with Esmeralda, 6 months, and she still hadn't replied via email. And I just couldn't accept that. That was not going to be my ending, where I have a question mark. So
Your own story is very important to you.
Yeah, I want to know. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, I want to know. I feel I deserve that to know. So I went around to the next street where my sister's house was, and I remember it like she was outside throwing away some trash, and I asked for her by name, and she said, "That's me." And then I just started kind of running my mouth like, well, I did this ancestry test, and I think we're related, and Esmeralda's on the list too, and I just didn't know what to do, and I emailed her, and finally she stopped me and she said, "Who are you?"
And your mom is standing there
my
too?
my mom was in the car. She said she would wait in the car
okay.
this time, yeah. So then I said, "My name is," and then she said, "I know who you are," and I saw her whole face just changed, and she said, "Dad talked about you."
Oh, wow.
And he told me one day you might come looking for him. So I just couldn't believe that he knew about me because I didn't know about him. I didn't know for sure. And had I known for sure, I probably would have tried to find him. I would have wanted to meet him from a younger age. And I didn't understand, why is this happening to me now? I'm like 40. I was 47 at the time. And he's gone. And it just hurt me. It hurt my soul to know that I'm never going to meet this man.
It must have felt so unfair.
It was. And we talked for about an hour, like maybe 30 minutes, 40. I mean, it just seemed like forever. And then I said, I should go get my mom. She's still sitting in the car. So I walked her over. And then that's when my mom said that she knew she had made a mistake. And then just to see her face, you never want to see your parent in pain like that. And I just had to tell her it's okay. I had to forgive her. And even though I said the words, "It's okay, I forgive you," I'm still working on it.
Oh, sure.
It's not, I wished it would be something that could just happen automatically. But I have good days and I have bad days. Mm-hmm. And there are some days where I wish that I had been told a lot earlier, just to have that opportunity. And I don't want to be one of those people that just, sits around and cries and feels like a victim, because I do want to look at what I do have. And I was thankful and very grateful that my sister was open to receiving me. And I told her right away, it's not anything about like material things or monetary value. I said, I just want to know who he was, what kind of man he was. Tell me stories about him. And that's exactly what she's done. We've known each other it'll be a year in May. And we spend a lot of time together. And we've gone to the cemetery together. And in fact, last Saturday was his birthday. So we went to visit him together. So it's just been really tough. As excited as I was to hear about it, it was just as sad to hear about it, because I think the biggest thing is, just the fact that, like I said, he's not here. I can't hug him. I can't talk to him. I can't look at him. I've looked at photos, and I can see in the photos where we resemble each other. And I hear the stories from my sister and her kids about certain things that I've done or certain pictures where I look just like him. But for me, it's just, there's that piece where it's like, I'm not going to meet him until I pass away. And I'm not ready to pass away. I want to enjoy, the rest of my life. But I am looking forward to the day that I do meet him, because I think that all of my questions will be answered when I finally meet him. So it's been a journey.
Such a journey. And
Yeah.
I can't help but think that, and I mean, I think you know this, but of course, there's two things that come up for me about what the little I know about you. And one is that you had a childhood where you were kind of moved around a little bit, and you had this idea, subtextual idea, that maybe you weren't wanted. And then you lost your father. So there's an expectation of how you're supposed to feel about that from inside yourself and then from outside. And then to learn that this man was so close and may have offered things that you felt like you were missing. Right. So that is all one level of heartbreak. And then the second thing I know is that you work for Child Protective Services.
Yes.
And so you must, and I don't even know what you do in that.
A lot of paperwork.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine my minimal experience with that is so administrative, but it's like administrative and mundane and so heartbreaking and stressful, and so much pressure. And so you deal, whether or not you are dealing directly with families, your livelihood is about children connecting or not connecting with the appropriate or inappropriate parents.
Yeah, it was very.
So I feel like you must have just been.
I was torn apart.
Yeah. I feel like your brain must have just
rug was
turned
ripped right
inside
from
out.
under me. Yeah. I had to take some time off, and I knew that I couldn't stay there, and I transferred. Now I'm in adoptions, so I'm hoping that this is an area that a little bit happier, a little bit more of a upbeat kind of situation.
The end goal is more celebratory.
Yes. Yeah. It's just been a journey in itself. And I had to find something that worked for me. So
It sounds like you're still finding it.
I am. I'm still on that path.
Yeah.
I'm still on that path. Because I feel like my career is just starting. And I've only been there 2 years, and I'm going to be growing and moving up, hopefully, promoting eventually. So,
Well, and you're now a new person than you were
And
2 years
everything-
ago
right.
because this whole thing has turned inside out.
Right. Yeah, if anything, I think I've learned not to be so judgmental. Like
yeah.
I think I have to look at it definitely made me look at my mom in a different way.
Totally. I think
But
I think some of this makes us see our parents in a way that
As
like no one
people.
as people, but also at a level that we're not supposed to.
Right,
Like it's
right.
just it's so humbling.
And I don't think I ever did that before. Even when I knew that my mom gave me away to my uncle for a good reason, and I felt like she had my best interest at heart.
How old was she when
She was,
you were born?
well, I'm the second born. So she had my brother at 20. I think I was 26, 27.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, young.
She was young.
It doesn't always matter, but
She was young,
It's
but
interesting
just
to
some of the
think of-
choices she's made in her life, I really question. Like, it just, knowing her, it just doesn't seem like she would make those kind of decisions. Choices, marrying certain people, but I can't judge her, and I think, that's who she is, and that's what she chose, so
did she talk about the affair at all and what that was about,
Yeah.
or how long it went, or what he offered her that
Well,
her husband wasn't?
when we
able
sat
to
down to
provide?
tell my brother the story, because we had, my brother already, like I said, he took the exam, the kit, the test and sent it back. And then I didn't say anything to him for about a month. And then my mom said, we got to tell him. At first, she didn't want to say anything to him. Then she said, no, I think we need to tell him.
And he had not been logging on
He
and doing
didn't
any
get it.
sort of
He
research
wasn't,
at all.
I don't
Okay.
even think he cared.
Yeah.
Because he did. I don't think he even went on.
It's like my little brother and his
Right,
whims. Okay,
right.
this weird project.
So, right. So when he did go on, or when we did speak with him, he said that's why he didn't want to do it. Because he felt like there was a possibility.
Like maybe he knew.
Yeah, I think he knew. And then right away he looked at me and he said, it's not going to change anything. We're still brothers, which, I always felt in my heart. This is my brother. This is all I've known as, the only soul brother that I've had. He was older, so he remembers a lot more of the volatile relationship that my mom and his dad had, or my mom and my birth certificate dad had. Because my birth certificate dad was on drugs, and he was an alcoholic also, and he was in and out of prison and jail, and so that just surprises me when my mom talks about it and was in gangs, and it just doesn't seem like a life that we would ever be surrounded by.
Seems so distant.
It seems so distant from the life that I lived.
The life that you live and the
because
mother
my
that you
uncle
know
took me.
now.
Right. I can't see her dealing with all of that drama and being okay with it. And but when I think about it, I mean, she was telling me from the beginning she met him when he was in jail, and she went with one of her friends to go visit somebody, and then she saw him and she remembered seeing him at a party, and she thought he was cute, and so I guess he started writing her, and the rest is history, But
yeah, I don't know what that archetype is, but there is something about like the handsome
bad guy.
prisoner. Yeah, the bad boy
guy,
prisoner,
yeah.
and they're kind of good looking.
Right.
I mean, there's a whole subculture
Yeah.
of those people,
Yes.
but there is something to be said about, especially for young women.
And knowing her now, I think she's definitely the archetype of like, I'm going to save you. You're an alcoholic. I'm going to change you. One of those women.
She was just going to take him in.
And and he was going to change and be a good guy and, but still have that edge maybe about him, but
just enough to stay sexy,
right.
But not enough to be dangerous.
Right. So I remember when we sat down with my brother, and the way that my mom told the story was, do you remember when this was before I was born, I was really sick at the end of 1969. She said I was in the hospital during Christmas, and my brother's like already getting sad and crying, and he goes, I thought you were going to die. I thought I was going to be, like an orphan or whatever. And then my mom said, well, I was really sick, and then I got well, and I went out and I started partying, and
New lease on life.
And she told him, she met a guy at a bar, and right away he said, so that's Greg's father. He knew that it was what the pathway was, where we were going down. And she said, yeah. And she said she tried to go outside of like the regular bars she would go to. But yeah, I guess they had this little fling. And then I believe she told him she was married. And when she got pregnant, and he said that he knew that the kid was his. And I guess at that time, maybe my birth certificate dad was in prison or jail, and then got out, and then she said, I'm pregnant, and maybe he wasn't too bright or didn't do the math, or who knows. I don't know, but everyone has pretty much contended that they think that he thinks that I was his kid all along. That there was no discrepancy.
He wasn't imagining anything else.
No. And the other guy.
And why would he?
Right.
Unless there was some kind of.
Right.
Sometimes there seems to be really obvious physical differences and things, but.
Right. I guess she was a good actress.
Sure.
In as far as, I've been faithful and nothing's happened while you've been gone, and
so often pregnancies can be such an exciting thing. And for a couple that is still trying to make it work, and he's always in trouble and she's trying to save him, I can see them just sort of like focusing on the fun of like, and we got
another
pregnant.
kid,
yeah,
right.
like we're going to do this. And
I remember my mom saying that I was not planned.
surprise, baby.
Right. But when she told me, like I said, I'm standing at the doorstep of my half sister, and she says, I know I messed up. And I said, you didn't mess up. You didn't abort me. I said, had you aborted me, then I could say you messed up. But I'm here. I'm happy. I'm healthy. And we'll figure it out.
Right.
We'll figure it out.
Right. So so I'm gathering that you wish she had told you sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like there was an age for you that would have been the right age? There's no, I mean, and I'm just curious because that's become something that we've talked about almost in everyone I've talked to.
I guess what I was thinking was maybe she should have told me when I came back to move with her at 11, when I came back and lived with her at that point. But even so, if she hadn't told me then, I think 18. 17 or 18 would have been great. Because what happened was, when I met my sister at the door, she told me, Dad had pictures of you. And I looked at my mom and I'm like, well, how would he get pictures of me? How would he know me? How does this all possible? And she was kind of like a blank stare. Like, I don't remember giving him pictures. I don't remember talking with him. And so my sister said, I'm going to go through his stuff and I'll text you later, take pictures of the pictures and send them to you. So,
right, because that's a timeline right there.
So we went to dinner, my mom and I, and right when we got to dinner, we sat down, and here come these text messages of my photos from when I was a baby until my high school graduation announcement. And it broke my heart again because I'm thinking, this man could have gotten to my graduation. And then in just uncovering...
God, so the taste of this almost relationship is just right there.
And knowing he had stopped by the house numerous times throughout my existence, and I either wasn't home. Like, how come I wasn't home? Where was I? I just wish he had stopped me. Even on my own, I would have been open to receiving him. And that's what hurts.
Right.
That if he just pushed a little bit harder or approached me without anybody around me, that I would have been open, because it was there in my brain.
Right. It's like all along
I knew
that uncle was making those suggestions.
Right.
So if someone had come up to you with more of that story,
I would have believed him.
You may have been open to it.
I would have believed him. And I would have said, how can we find out? How can we be for sure that this is true? And this is like maybe the 70s and 80s. So there wasn't really I didn't hear about a lot of paternity tests.
Right. They weren't easy. There certainly weren't easy,
exactly.
like mail order DNA.
Exactly.
But sounds to me like it's more about the relationships and not so much the DNA. And are you mad at your mom?
I don't want to say I'm mad at her. I'm disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm disappointed. Yeah. I'm sad. I'm disappointed. I feel like I thought we had a better relationship than that. Like my mom and I felt like we were really close. Like she was a friend and a mom. And when I was about 14, I came out to my mom and I told her that I thought I was gay. And she said, yeah, it's just a phase you're going through, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure. And then we didn't talk about it for a few years. And then I think when I was about 17, 18 years old, and I started dating and going out, my stepdad approached me and asked me. And I said, yeah, that I was gay.
Just like I said.
And right. And he goes, I want you to tell your mom. And I said, I told her when I was about 14 or 15. And he goes, well, I want you to tell her again. And he said, I love you and I support you and I don't want you to, the whole thing. So it wasn't like it was some traumatic experience. It was more, it was a loving experience, actually. I was very lucky, very lucky. So for me to come out to my mom about certain things and tell her things about, my love life and my sexuality, it just felt like...
really bared your soul.
Right. And I'm thinking, you're not doing the same. This is not reciprocal. And it puts her back on that whole, like, she's keeping secrets, and I felt betrayed. And I was very hurt. Very hurt. I think I still am working through it all.
I mean, it's only been a year.
Right. It hasn't even been a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. May. We're not even
next
in
month
May.
will be a year. So.
Well, it sounds like you have this trauma And then on top of that, like a compounded grief.
Right.
Like no one would expect you to be a 100% functioning happy
Well,
person a year
I
later.
wish you could tell that to my former boss because she just thought, who did I hire? Like this kid was, I don't know, magical at first, and now he's crying at his desk. He doesn't, he walks out of the office. He's calling out, and plus when I went out to visit one of my cousins in Arizona a few months ago, I mentioned to his wife that what was going on about this whole DNA thing. And she said that she saw something on TV. And so I immediately searched for it, and it was a support group. And I joined the support group, and I started reading all of the stories. And I was just blown away that all these people are going through the same thing
so many
that I'm
people.
going through. And it's like those damn kits are so cheap now, and they're selling them 2 for $1, and it changes people's lives. You just don't know. And I think even though I thought it's a possibility, I didn't really think it all through. But if I had a chance to go back and do it all again, yeah, I would still do it. Would I do it in 2013? No, I probably would have gone, a lot earlier. As soon as I first heard about it, I would have taken it more seriously.
Yeah. Wow. Had you known? I mean, I feel like that could be the name of the podcast is like, had I known, had you known, had we known, could we, what would we do differently?
The other sad part is that my sister, when I met her at her door, she said, Dad and I did 23andMe. And I thought, oh my gosh. People talk to me about 23andMe, and I only did the Ancestry DNA.
You're so close.
I went to the wrong store, So
this is like the American Tail movie.
Right. So if you're not in the 23andMe,
Bible is right there.
Right. But I actually went and bought the 23andMe the next day. I ordered it and got the results, and there he was. There he was, number 1 on my list, and she was number 2. So there was no doubting it. It's not BS like my brother wants to, contend.
Does he still sort of say it's BS, or he
knows that it's true, but I think I don't know if he feels like it changed things or
if all it did was deliver heartbreak, what's the point anyway? And that's what's BS. Yeah.
But my brother actually put my mom on the line and held her a little bit more accountable than I did, because I couldn't yell at her. I couldn't argue with her. And I just thought, my mom's already 75 years old. I don't know how much time we're going to have left. If I die tomorrow, or if she, anything could happen in this world. I want to be happy. I want to have a good relationship with her for whatever time we have left. I don't want to spend time yelling or being pissed off about it. It is what it is, and now I can work from this point. But my brother told her, you were never going to tell us, were you? You were going to take it to the grave. And my mom said, yeah. So I'm just grateful that my brother did it, that I did it, and that I know. Because had she passed away and then I found out, then I probably would have had
even
a lot of problems with
unanswered
her.
Questions.
Yeah. I would have been pissed.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for anybody that is new to this situation?
I would say join the online group, because it is beneficial hearing other people's stories, and you find out that your reality is not, I mean, I hate to say this, but you read some of the stories and you think, wow, this person really has it bad.
That one's really bad.
Yeah, my situation
There's
isn't
always
that
somebody
bad.
with a
There's
worse
always somebody with a
story.
worse story. But I hate to say that, because, there's always going to be somebody with that worse story. But where families have totally shunned people on, where they don't want to deal with them anymore. The mother doesn't, people just cut people out of their lives because of this. And, and I'm not one of those stories. If anything, the sadness, like I said, would be just that I didn't get to meet my dad. But, it really depends on the person. If you're able to handle all of this, I think the founder of the group says there should be a warning label, that this could change your life for good. And you may find out some things that you're not ready for.
Right. This could totally destroy your family.
Right. So if you're willing to go through all of this, and, your mom may never talk to you again, and some of these people reach out to their bio fathers, and it's like, the bio father might be kind of interested, but maybe he's married and she wants nothing. The wife wants nothing to do with you, or the bio father wants nothing to do with you. And I couldn't.
No, maybe those warnings should be very detailed.
Right.
It should be
Yeah,
like these
there's
are
a
all
lot
the,
of,
there's
yeah,
a, these
side
are all the
effects.
things that could happen.
Right. These are the side effects. So, and I have to think about like my situation where I don't know how my father would have reacted if I came knocking on his door. My sister says he would have been open, and she says, and he would have taken you in. He would have been opened with open arms, you know? So I take solace in that. I find comfort in that. And that he would have loved me unconditionally is what it sounds like. So I just want to stay there with that. And
Right, that's the best we can all
that's
hope
the
for.
best, yeah. So, and that's where it is. But I just think that you got to think it completely through, how it's going to not only affect you, but everyone else around you. And if you're willing to still go the limit, then go for it.
I wish we could have a warning like that and then take a survey of how many people read it and continue to go through with it. Because I think people still think, well, that's not me.
Right.
That's not my family.
Right. And some of those worst case scenarios, I mean, there are so many variations of stories, like maybe the mother was raped, or, you know, maybe it was incest. And that was my biggest thing, that I was so afraid that it was going to be something really dark. And I thought, what if she was raped? What if she was, you know, it was I'm a product of incest, or some other situation that...
When the man contacted me about my situation, that was where my mind just went to dark. Like, I didn't know what it meant, but I was so afraid he was going to have really dark information. And he didn't. But he... yet devastating information in a lot of ways, but not as dark as I had imagined.
Yeah.
So I really relate to that, to the way that your mind opens up to ideas that you never thought about. You just never, ever fathomed.
Yeah. Just like with my genetics, because I didn't really know. And then my sister says, oh, well, you know, we have Lebanese blood. And so to find out that my dad's dad was from Lebanon. And so that was just really mind-blowing. And then doing my research and finding out his dad was from Saudi Arabia. And so it's just kind of crazy. I never expected any of that to be that close in my, you know, linkage of my family. Like maybe way, way back, like centuries or something with Spain or something like that. But this is like just, you know, 2 generations ago where they were in another country.
So much traveling in your roots.
Right.
On all sides.
Yeah. So I'm just in awe of all of that. Yeah.
Wow. What a story. I'm so grateful you came in today.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I don't need, like, time and time again, I'm just stunned at the end of these. They're just, I don't know what to say. So I guess we'll just say goodbye. We're done. But I'll turn the mic off. But yeah, wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being so vulnerable.
Thank you.
With me. It was really awesome. I think people really need to hear that.
Guys, I think this podcast is going to be so fun. I really love talking about this with people and finding out where we relate in our stories and where we found things to be different. This time, I really felt touched by this man's story about wishing that he'd had a father in the time that he was missing a father figure. For me, I don't relate to that. Not that I don't understand it. It totally makes sense to me. But I have a father. I have a dad that raised me and raised my siblings, and he was incredibly present and loving and doing the best that he could. And so I don't have that longing feeling. I'm very curious about the man that's my biological father, but it doesn't feel like a longing for something. I didn't come to the situation already in a place of feeling like I was missing something. So that's been an interesting perspective for me to witness with these stories. And we'll just see what I find in the next one. If you have a DNA story that you want to share, you can email me, Eve, at everythingsrelativepodcast.com. That's Eve, E-V-E, at everythingsrelativepodcast.com. Everything's Relative podcast is produced by Eve Sturgis and Kaylin Egan. It is edited by Julia Butte, and theme song is by Goodbye the Band. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.